Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another tutorial, or more like doing a late night quick tip here. And really quick, I'm just going over some things inside of a Cinema 4D to kind of help with working with textures that I kind of struggled with in the beginning. It was sort of frustrating to kind of get textures to work the way you want it. And it also goes doubly important with if you're working with a client's logo and you need to put it on a texture inside of Cinema, you don't want to distort it or change the logo. So here's a couple of quick tips to kind of deal with those textures on side of objects and make sure you're not manipulating them and distorting them and changing them, and they are good to go. So as always, let's go ahead and jump right into Cinema 4D and get going. All right, cool. So here we go. So we're inside of Cinema here. And I'm just gonna start dragging in some textures. What I got here are just some, random sort of stock photos of people looking at stuff and standing and, doing a stock footage B-roll thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start with this photo of, a lady casually looking at her cell phone next to a wall. And let's just sort of drag it on and see what happens. So the first two things that you notice that might happen is our texture is squeezing. And again, if this was a client logo or something, you don't want to mess or change any sort of scaling with their logo. So let's go ahead and start adjusting a couple things. So the first thing that bothers me that, I've done a few other tutorials that maybe helps you is how low res this texture looks. So before you even get going, I'm going to double click this. And inside the editor tab here, I'm going to go to texture size preview or texture preview size. And this is I think this is like an 8K image, but even if I set something here by like 4K, it's going to sharpen up our image a little bit and give us something better to work with. So the modes we kind of want to work with the most when we're doing flat images is, unless this matches, we don't really want to do UVW. I'll do an example here in a second, but kind of the main ones we're going to be using are flat and cubic. So let's just go ahead and use cubic and see what happens. So all of a sudden, as soon as we switch it to cubic, we get our aspect ratio and our scaling and our proportions all the same. So let's go ahead and just sort of manipulate this and get it to where we want it on the side of this cube. So what I might do is I might turn tiling off, and we kind of get this weird sort of see-through thing happening. So I'm going to just, for now, let's just put a gray texture underneath our main texture. Let's go ahead and start scaling this so it fits the cube. So usually, the first thing you do is you grab this, grab the texture tool, hit T to get your transform up there, and you try to scale this. And you can't hold Shift or Alt or anything to lock the dimensions and the proportions of how you want to scale this up. And so, you kind of end up doing something like this and moving it up, and, you're just sort of praying that, you're sort of praying that, you're not distorting this lady too much, and it's all working and looking good. So let me go ahead and undo all that, and let's just kind of get back to where we were. So here we are originally cubic, and there's a really simple way to do this so you don't have to mess with any of this length or any of this stuff. Is just go ahead and with your texture mode selected, just select the anchor point. Let me hit T to get our transform, and just selecting the anchor point inside of texture mode, it's going to lock this texture, and no matter how I kind of move this in a circle, it's going to lock it. So I can kind of, if I want her to fit this cube, I can just go ahead and scale it up, switch back to my move tool here, move her over, and kind of set the framing exactly how I want it to be. So cool. There's a quick example of a cube. Let's start playing with this plane really quick and just sort of run into things that, sort of naturally happen here. So let's grab the plane, and let's see, do we want to go with guy casually sitting down? Yeah, why not? Let's just go ahead and select that. So let's go ahead and get out of UVW mapping. We could turn the plane, but imagine if you have an object that you're not able to do that with. So let's grab that. Let's try something like flat this time and see what happens. All right, cool. So when we're in flat mode, you can see that our texture is facing to the side. So I don't even have to be in the anchor point mode for this. Let's just go ahead and rotate this, and I'm gonna hold Shift to lock it to 90 degrees, and I'm gonna hold Shift to lock it this way again. And so what we got now is we kind of got this into place, but again, we're sort of fighting with that distortion, and we have to sort of match to make sure that that our texture is right when we're inside of when we're doing a flat projection. And so this might be another one of those times where I'd like to switch it back to cubic. So let's go to cubic, and he flipped the other way, but you can see we're sort of already getting some scaling. So I would set this back to 100%. And if you want to flip him the other way, I would just set this something like -100. Go with the U to -100. And we kind of got something going here again with positioning him on the square. Now let me show you an example that sort of helps when you're using a flat projection. Let's just go ahead. I'm going to just throw in another plane. And let's go ahead. Let me get out of the anchor point here. I'm just going to rotate it. And we'll throw it to the side. And let's just get another random texture up here. All right, this girl on her computer. All right, and with this texture, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to lock it so it stays up. And since we know we're doing flat projection, I'm going to go ahead and make our plane match the resolution of what our image is. Let's make the width 5760 and the height 3840. And so what we got here, and this is good example, is I turned this texture sideways. So let's go ahead, because we know that this is a horizontal photo. Let's go ahead and grab it. I'm going to rotate it back 90 degrees. So now our plane resolution, or width and height, matches what our photo resolution is. So now if we drag our photo on there, it's going to automatically match up inside of UVW mapping. So if we go ahead and scale this and move it around, it's going to match and be good to go. But let's say, let me go ahead and undo that. Let's say you didn't have UVW mapping. This might be an object and something that you need to adjust manually. Let's set this to flat and play with flat projection just real fast. So there we go. All right, so we switched it to flat. We got some weird things happening. Let's select it. Let's go back into our texture mode. And as you can see, our texture is facing down. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to select the anchor point. I'll hit R to grab the rotation. And let's get this facing towards us and see where we're at. All right, so we got it towards us, but it's upside down. So let's rotate this 180 degrees. And look at all those beautiful tiles. And since we have flat projection and we know this plane matches the resolution of our photo, let's just go ahead and right click this guy and say fit to object. And there we go. Now we're back with our flat projection. And it's going to get a little funky because, depending on what your situation is, flat projection might not work. But that is a quick way to get your textures to match. And I might just flip this back 180 degrees so it matches. And then I would probably finish it off by going to the editor panel here and switching to something like 4K. And inside of object mode, I'll just scale everything down. We'll put it back with the rest of our examples. And there we go. So there we go, guys. Just a couple of quick tips that hopefully helps you work, a little bit faster with textures and photos and images on objects inside of Cinema 4D. And as with everything, there's tons of ways to do this, but these are the ways that hopefully help you because they seem to help me and get to where I need a lot faster. So thanks again for tuning in, guys. And, as always, have an awesome weekend. I'll see you in the next tutorial and have a great one.